Hey everybody, you know what day of the week it is. It's Comics Day. That makes this X's for show, your favorite show about responding to crazy stuff that happens in comic books, except today it's not so much in comic books. I'm Nico Action. You can check me out all over your social at NICOACTION.
It's from comic books, but it's not in comic books. I'm TK, and you can find me at TK Elemental.
And I'm your producer in the corner. You can find me at Kevo Really. That's KEVOREALLY. And I am shook, everyone. Very shook.
Yeah, so it's really funny because like when you ask me to say like, why shouldn't the X-Men live on an island? I am forced to think about a John Peak Jonah in the chat. That's awesome. It's contributor Peak Jonah in the chat, looking adorable, right? When I think about reasons X-Men shouldn't live on islands, it's like their entire history involving islands, including Manhattan. Don't get me wrong. But I am specifically surprised that I really wasn't sure which massacre this was supposed to be. Was this Krakoa? Was this a Hellfire Gala? Was this the Genosha massacre that took Precious Magneto from the world? What? And then Gambit, the hero.
Bold.
Yeah, I don't take anything back I've ever said about Gambit. I instead say, interesting choice.
What do you mean by that?
When you think about arcs and heroic arcs, right? The idea that a character would be like, no, I'm gonna die to save everyone. It has to have a pure purpose, or it always seems a little too measured. And part of my problem with Gambit's sacrifice at the end of this episode is it was basically like, I'd like to see Magneto do this. And it didn't feel like he was like, this is for Nightcrawler, and this is for Rogue, and this is for Leech, and this is for... No, it was like, I don't want her to do it, so I'll kill myself instead.
I don't know. That's kind of, I don't know. To me, it was pretty Gambit. Like, he is very brave. He is very daring, but he is not the most moral, and he is not the most upright of the citizens in this brigade. And he also doesn't sacrifice himself. He does not, obviously bad odds, but the bad odds are already there. So he's not taking a shot where he's like, if I do this, I will definitely die, but everybody else will live. He goes for an attack, gets hit, is going to die, and does the last move he has available to him.
Right.
It's... On the one hand, I am not the world's biggest Gambit fan. I always think it's so funny when people are like, "Oh, I'm 39. I'm a late 30s millennial who read comics, gay millennial who read comics in the 90s. Of course, I'm gay for Gambit." And like I was gay for everything back then, and for some reason was never Gambit. Didn't matter how many swimsuit issues I got my hands on. All of them, Colossus, Wolverine, Scott, Cable, all of them. Nightcrawler. For some reason, just never Gambit. So sexually, it's whatever. But like also, I don't know, I was never charmed by him. I am in no way defending him, but I was just like, that is, it felt solidly to me like what would happen.
I think where I'm a little bit thrown off by some of the text then is like Gambit literally stops Rogue because it's suicide to do it, then does it. So he had to know he was likely to die.
Yeah.
He can't have kept... So then it is that he was going to go sacrifice himself. He was putting himself in the position to die so other people didn't.
Yes.
And so it is this sense of noble self-sacrifice for a character who literally led to execution in the sewers. For a character who has turned to dark forces to gain dark abilities to save the day behind everybody's backs. Like,
I think this is more a commentary on how the bad writing of Gambit throughout the years makes it really difficult to have a character keep existing for so long.
Yeah, no, and that's what it is. Yes. And
Yeah.
so like it doesn't feel like this is Gambit finally stepped up and saved the day. It feels like, well, Gambit died here.
Yeah.
And
well, and it's funny too because like this Gambit didn't finally step up and save the day. If this were happening during Fall of the House of X, you might say, like, you know, after everything, Gambit finally stepped up and was the bravest guy in the room. But this is for them. Like, this Gambit didn't do the mutant massacre.
I mean, I know.
You know, this Gambit, I think his biggest crime, which is still one of Gambit, regular comic Gambit's biggest crimes, is just he just straight up walked out on his wife. He just straight up married a lady and pieced. He ghosted her.
I also just, and I know I said it in our first episode, I love that he's a bit thinner here than he's been.
Yes.
He never should have had the triple wide linebacker build.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not talking about it right now, but when we get to Midnight Suns, my one really big complaint is everybody is
the bodies are all the same.
Hulk.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
The bodies, I mean, it's exactly what your original critique, when you said one of the things that looks really good is that they all have different body types. I mean, like, I get it because Midnight Suns isn't that kind of game. It also subtly, the graphics change subtly depending on what your computer can power. So I was playing it on the Steam Deck, which is pretty low res. And when I play it on the house PC, which is the one that the newly built one that's attached to the TV that has like a very high end graphics card and can do everything on ultra settings, there are slight but noticeable differences. But anything less than ultra, and they all have the same like V taper, like same shoulders, Spider-Man, Iron Man, you know, anyway, yeah. But yes, I mean, we did throughout one of the real joys of this episode was that we saw a lot of body types because we saw so many mutants.
Okay, so then that's a great transition because I'm of two minds on all the cameos.
Yeah.
The worst, we'll talk about the worst cameo in comic book television history. We'll get to it in a minute. But I guess the cameo I didn't expect was, okay, and okay. If you are a child of the 90s, of course, you have seen the sign. You know all that she wants is another baby. You are probably even standing here in your ravine, and once again, you see a piece of the sky. Aren't they like vaguely white supremacists who like repeatedly reference like icky works? And then did they play this as a subtle romantic theme for a Jewish man?
I think one of them may have been and is not part of the group anymore.
Left their family to join a different brotherhood. Got it.
But yeah, it's just one of them. One of them had some white power beliefs, but I don't believe he was the primary songwriter. Listen, I love Ace of Base so much. As soon as I heard it first, okay, really quickly, I did think I wasn't paying a lot of attention, and I did think it was Enigma for a second.
I actually wondered if it was Delirium, like from the Karma days. It had that networky Eurasian. Yes.
Yeah. But I immediately realized that it was Happy Nation. This was the first album I ever purchased for compact disc. This is something that Nico and I share in common. This is children watching this today. I feel like if you are even younger millennial, but definitely Gen Z, you only really know Ace of Base from the jokey cover that the Pitch Perfect girls do. That is the bad song that they should never do again. You guys have missed out on so much. That album is one of the greatest Europop, Swedish post-ABBA.
And I'm going to take it a step higher. I think The Bridge is actually another solid work. And
Yes.
because I believe the sign is a hybridization of their first two European records.
Yes, that
And
is
so,
that is
like,
correct. Because Happy Nation
is its own record.
I will say this. I think Happy Nation was not on my original.
It's not in the original pressing because the other pressing has the additional remix too at the end.
Yeah.
It's like the bridge having the acoustic version of Lucky Love. I can't even. Anyway.
Ace of Base, very important pop group. I think a lot of people don't realize how big their influence is.
You are wrong. You are wrong. A handsome child says he knows it from a different show.
Yeah, Peak Jonah, I don't know. That's after Pitch Perfect, right?
It doesn't matter. It has the single most beautiful woman in the history of the world, Marla Sokolov, and that's literally all I know. She's the hottest.
Don't go down this
planet.
path. This ends up being too much information for our viewers.
Who are you going to cast her as in the MCU is the real question.
Actually, that is a fantastic question.
I love that. I think what's tough is I don't know her modern acting chops well enough. So I'm gonna demur for the mome. And I'll do.
You know what?
Quiet
Trish
reflection.
Tilby.
You got so mad when she came on screen.
I just kept hoping that like she would die in the massacre.
I actually too was sort of hoping she would die in the massacre. Very funny.
Show feet.
And boy, did he ever. That's why she was so into this meeting. That's why she was so into this interview.
She is like a straight dude who's all like really anti-gay in public, but has a secret grinder and scruff, and you can always tell because you hear the chimes. She's like one of those. She's like, yes. I mean, mutants, but you want to fuck me because you're blue?
Yeah, 100% that.
Straight guy.
Somebody also made a comment about how like you can feel the general bigotry from her and her ilk because who did that hair? That was not a gay man doing that hair, which I thought was a great read.
This is
Twitter
TV hair.
Twitter has been on fire with the responses for this episode. I gotta say, I mean, it is obviously just like we are all hanging out at a rave in a dumpster. That is partially on fire, that just like is kind of rolling down a sewage river. We all know that that's where we are, but we're not getting out of the dumpster. And I just want to say today is a day that felt like the sewage river diverged into just a nice river, and maybe the fire didn't end in the dumpster, and maybe we're still in the dumpster, but just the river of sewage became a nice regular brook for a while as we were floating down it while reading all the responses today about this particular episode. I just thought everybody was so lovely and engaged, and I gotta give a lot of props / it was just immediately noticeable that at like has to have been 2 a.m. his time, Bo DeMeo hopped on Twitter and just hung out for the rest of the day, taking a victory lap, which he absolutely deserved. But I remember I woke up at 7 and there was already like 3 hours worth of comments that he was replying to. And I was like, gosh, that's got to be pretty early for you, friends. So anyway, I don't have much more to say than that.
Really interesting to hear you say that like it's a full victory lap. I give this a B- for the most part, because I think if you don't know what you're watching, at best you're reacting to ideas, and in many ways that actually minimizes the reality of the situation. The namelessness of all of the death, the continued use of characters in trope-based ways where they all have no personality, and like I understand you have so much time, but then you don't have that much time, and like the idea that we are now casting tragedies with cookie cutter molds, this for me did now whatever the finale is. I don't understand I don't understand how there can be efficacy, because like that has to do in 3 episodes, across 3 episodes, with this delivered in 1 for 3 episodes, or it's going to feel very counterbalanced. And I just don't know what this was trying to tell. That is my big takeaway.
So it's interesting. And I'm glad you brought this up now, because perfectly, like we're hitting the points here. Like I said, victory lap on Twitter, which, as I mentioned, is a dumpster fire on a sewage river. So like when I say, I mean, like, you make a perfect point. I'm telling you, everybody I saw on Twitter loved it, thought it was the best episode, had great things to say about it, and really good insight. That's a fraction of who is watching this show. And who will watch this show, and that's a fraction of reactions. My echo chamber in that fraction is infinitesimally smaller. So, but like when I say Bo Demand took a victory lap on Twitter, like, again, like, he maybe is not getting that same response from mainstream America, but like on Twitter, people were loving him. And these are all people who, if you're on Twitter talking about X-Men. And also X-Men 97. And if I can see you on there, chances are you know a lot about comics. So you already are somebody who could read between the lines and fill in the gaps and make this episode as beautiful as you kind of want to see it, because you have seen both, the current Krakoan era, E Is For Extinction, everything else that you would maybe need to see in order to make this great. I can't speak in any way for how the average person would receive this, for how average people are receiving it. The only thing I know is that it is now the highest rated episode of the show on IMDb. But again, where are those ratings coming from? Are those people who are really invested in this kind of having told one of their big stories? So I don't know. I give it a bit of a higher grade than you do, but I hear all your concerns and your critiques. I mean, like, you're not incorrect. This adapted an event that was 35 years in the making when Grant Morrison did it. And that in Morrison's run is a blip, because the entire story is about what comes out of this. Like, this is like frames, this is like panels and like a couple pages in the Morrison run, the extinction of Genosha. And the whole point is, it's not, Morrison wasn't telling the story of the Genoshan genocide. He was telling the story of the aftermath,
right?
Which we already know this is specifically going to not do, because we saw Cable. So we know that this is going to tell us the story of the time cyclical prevention of this. Yeah.
I just, real quick, I want to just bring in a little bit of a super cool fan voice today. Normally one of us, but hanging out in the chat like a super fan today. Peak Jonah says it felt a little rushed, like we have a peaceful nation, then immediately destroyed. And to that, TK, I do want to ask you. So you felt this was adapting the extinction event on Genosha, whereas
Yes.
I felt like this was adapting the Hellfire Gala, that just
the third
occurred.
Hellfire Gala. Yeah.
Because like it literally showed like the dancing and the
yes,
magic.
they were at the gala, and the Hellfire Club was there.
And to that end,
yeah,
there's got to be a new positronic dual matrix where we can grade things that are legitimate adaptations in a different way, because there's the what this is score, and then there's the score for the fact that the Hellfire Gala that this was, even though it wasn't, but it kind of represented, had Sebastian, Emma, and Moira on the council.
Yep.
And I also,
hold on, quick. We got to just say it now, and we don't have to talk about it again. Unforgivably bad accents on Sean and Moira. You guys, I do feel as though we have to have standards here. Unforgivable.
The standards were all in the quality of storytelling. I just want to say, JB, not Gambit. I actually do think I talked about it a little bit, and I feel like
he thinks yes, Gambit.
Well, I think no Gambit.
Or why Gambit is the question.
Yeah,
Gambit didn't deserve to die here.
Oh, okay. I was thinking you would say Gambit deserved to die, but it just wasn't a great death.
Here's the thing, like, I do like I keep noticing that I have like resting bitch face today. I've had like a complicated couple of weeks in a good way, and so like I'm just having like a lot of feels. All right, but I don't think Gambit is a subpar character.
Yeah.
I think Gambit represents an ideal to be cool before you have to be creative. And Gambit is cool over creative. He make things explode.
Gambit is also a like 45-year-old man in 1987's idea.
Trying to, like, fuck 14-year-old Storm.
Yeah, this is a very uncool person's idea from an uncool era of what a very uncool subset of people, nerdy kids, will think is cool. That then Jim Lee made a smidge cooler by drawing better, but like this idea, like, I'm sorry, in real life, no millennials and young Gen Xers were like, you know what's really cool to me? A Cajun person from Louisiana who is a thief.
Because
Pop-Tarts.
Do you know who this guy really is? And now I'm blanking on his dumb name. He's got the hot brother who is still cool, and Seth Rogen won't work with him anymore.
Franco, Dave.
Franco.
Yeah, this is James Franco. Gambit is James Franco.
Yeah, 100%. You can see why somebody thought he was cool, but if you dig in at all, or if you've had any personal experience, in fact, not cool whatsoever.
But then the fanon makes him cool.
Yeah. And the fact that, like, as everybody, like, as so many people say, like, I thought Gambit was hot when I was younger.
I also think it's his colors. Like,
yes,
I can just say
the bisexual coloring is very important.
The bisexual coloring, but with those dark black and red eyes. You know, we're talking about a character who was born in, just to make a funny reference, the era of the actual comic Midnight Suns. He had this sort of like gritty, heavy toughness to him, but that sexy blue with the giant bodice of pink. You know, Sasha Colby also thinks this bitch is a goddess. And, you know, the big walkaway I have from that whole thing, because like I feel bad. I think where I try and think about these shows sometimes is it's so cool that everybody thinks X-Men is cool again, but every one of my friends that goes back and watches it on D+ goes, "Did you remember it was like not good?" And I'm like, "Yes." And they're like, "Oh, I thought you loved it."
I didn't have to remember. I actually knew at the time.
I've watched it 4 times. It's one of those things where, like, let's sort of call things what they are. The original was a 90s cartoon show for kids that did the best it could. Was it great? No. But did the vibes it gave make great things? Yes. Is the first season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer good? Kind of no, objectively. Are there great moments? And does it give us season 5? Yes. But, like, is the novelty of boy goes through puberty and starts acting like a hyena, is the novelty of boy finds sexy teacher and can't stop himself from trying to fuck sexy teacher, is the novelty of the male experience that is the hyper predominant storyline throughout Buffy season 1 actually high art? No, but things can be shaky and get better. I think that's what X-Men is for so many people.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely it's weird because it's also the experience. X-Men the animated series never got better. It stayed consistently the same. What got better is you, the viewer's experience of the X-Men, if you kept engaging with the X-Men, because you got the comics, you got the movies, you got and the thing I've always said is, like, I loved the show just fine because it was my Saturday morning cartoon, but what it really was to me was a gap bridger for lore. And so I could go into reading X-Men comics and have better ideas about what was going on. Because when it came out, I was like 7 years old. So, like, there was a lot of, like, my reading comprehension wasn't there for a lot of stuff that was happening in the comics. And I didn't have access to old stuff. So, like, I didn't know who Madeline Pryor was. Not that X-Men the animated series helped me with that, but I'm saying, like,
every time she's like, "Call me Madeline Pryor," I literally just go, "Why?"
Yeah, why is that your name? No, we'll get to that. Don't worry. But when X-Men the animated series came out, I had never read Inferno. I didn't know who Ilyana was. And, you know, there were just a lot of things that I came to understand better because of X-Men the animated series. And then X-Men got better because of that. You know, because I could understand so much more of it and I could read all the comics. And by the time the movies came out, I knew everything about the X-Men. So, like, X-Men got better, but the animated series never got better. And so if you're talking about that, this is actually the thing that needs to be better. And I can understand if your overall, one of the things you're saying is like, this isn't quite better for you. It's not bad. It's just not quite that much better. Hey, Allie.
Hey, Allie. Because I don't back down from my B+.
Yeah.
And I mean, B-, B+. Because here's the range I do want to say. If what we're trying to tell is episodic,
yep.
No, this was very bad. If what we're trying to tell is very connective, heavy continuity, really an overall season, this was great. But like, there are things in this that I have qualms with. For instance, just to jump into a little bit of what maybe specifically didn't work for me was how other people feel about Janet Jackson concerts. Evidently, people don't love that Janet Jackson will put 4 songs into a 9-minute medley and just go between them nonstop and do all the choreography and like make a good number. If I ever see Exodus Kitty Pride dance ever again in my entire life, I will flatline, come back, and punish the world.
Maybe.
Well, for one thing, that's Cypher.
No, I mean Exodus. If you'll go back to Exodus for me.
Yeah.
At one point in the episode, he's going like, and it's like, what? It's like at some point, this is where the cameo palooza loses its mind.
I agree, and I actually felt like for me it actually started before that because I was like, Jamie is a lot of things, but I just don't think Jamie dances like that. I just feel like when somebody storyboarded that, I would have been like, maybe have him do literally any other dance. Pick a Fortnite emote and just have him do one of those.
Have him doing a TikTok dance, 11 of him.
Yeah. That was a weird thing. I know. I also did notice it felt like I really want to ask somebody about this. That felt specifically like the X-Men Evolution Tabitha.
Yes. Also, that one guy just before the big explosion was so obviously Beau DeMayo.
Oh yeah, no, it was.
Yeah.
It was Beau DeMayo, and then the guy next to him is the supervising producer.
Oh, okay, cool. Because I was like, I mean, obvious, and I hope everybody is seeing. Because I think that's great. I've never minded. Yeah. There's a long history of Stan Lee
of stuff, and I mean, they put a bunch of they put like Kevin Feige at a Hellfire Gala. It's I mean, it's a cute thing.
And let's of course never forget Animal Man and Grant Morrison having a terrific conversation.
Yes. The guy next to him is the supervising producer, and he kind of reminds me of Latine hot older boyfriend.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Something for you to think about just in life.
I don't know. I thought the Cameo Palooza maybe did kind of devalue things because I guess that's what it is. I guess I felt like this episode was so big, yet treated so small. It's kind of like when Captain America dies in Captain America 25 and not in Civil War number 7. This feels like it so completely eclipsed Inferno. It so completely eclipsed the first, that first 2 parts even. Like that opening, it felt like this was always the show, but then it feels like the show is actually about these 3 characters, and I'm not trying to gatekeep fandom in any way. If these are the 3 characters it's going to be about, please give Gene, Scott, and Logan a break. But I felt like for the amount of effort put into this should have been 2 episodes. This was so powerful, it deserved a little bit more time.
I do agree with this, and this is a weird thing about this season. Like, I wish it were 12 or more episodes. I wish it were a larger season.
I do wish it was 12 more episodes, yes.
Yeah, 12 more episodes. 12 or more, but yes, 12 more episodes.
Fine.
There are things like I would not have. I don't know. It's weird because it's not a half split. In the last episode, Motendo is 2/3 of it, and Life Death Part 1 is 1/3.
Is a really good notion.
And we're getting another Life Death. We're getting Life Death Part 2. I don't know. Maybe I would have done Life Death all as just one episode, but then maybe that's, not enough. And like I said, there is precedent for the X-Men cartoon doing exactly that. Like I said, they did it originally with Xavier and the Savage Land, where they would have a whole episode and then the last few minutes would be an update on Xavier and Magneto trying to survive in the Savage Land. And that happened for a while. So like they're referencing something when they do that. But like, I also think that, Inferno was very Fire Made Flesh covering all of Inferno was very fast to do in one episode. And like the fact that we never got like goblin shit is just it's literally just Madeline going goblin mode. Like it has nothing to do with Limbo or anything. And I felt like if this were more episodes, you could have shown in episode 1 that she is making a deal with some kind of demon. I don't know. I know it's complicated because you're also adapting Byzantine canon and lore, and trying to put a lot of this stuff in there doesn't make a lot of sense and can be kind of difficult. But I hear what you're saying. Like, this is a huge episode because you are also right in that it is not just E for Extinction or the Hellfire Gala. It is both of them. That it's, I can see how you might argue that it's more the most recent Hellfire Gala, but like, it's not devoid of E for Extinction because that's literally the Sentinel.
Yeah.
So like and it's Genosha. So like there's it's trying to cover both. And given that those are two of the monumental events, what?
But it's not exactly E is for Extinction, which is humans exactly as they are so horrible. Humans are going to kill all the mutants. E is for Extinction is, even though it's Cassandra Nova, all she's doing is accessing technology created by humans. She is taking what humans have done and giving them what they want. This is time travel magic, and it automatically changes the entire purpose of E is for Extinction from them versus us to supernatural threat.
Well, we actually don't know what it is.
But it time traveled. So
we do know that time travel is involved in some capacity because there's our guy.
So it can't just be straightforward, no powers.
You are right about that.
I already saw a contributor to the show, Arturo, mention his idea that perhaps this is going to do something to undo some of the more horrific and main deaths.
Oh, it is. No, 100%. I think they'll undo basically the entire thing, which I get, but that does bring me to mind of Jean not dying at the end of the Dark Phoenix saga in the original X-Men the animated series.
I discovered emotions and they were tasty, so I just kind of fucked around. What's the problem? Oh, you guys aren't into Greek phoenixes. You guys are only into Slavic firebirds. I'm so sorry. I have to go.
So yes, this is not E for Extinction. This is absolutely in no way a 1-for-1 or really even a clear adaptation of E for Extinction, but it has a lot of E for Extinction beats. And it has a lot of Hellfire Gala beats. The thing is, we don't know yet what this is trying to say and what this is trying to tell us overall.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I can see this being A+ if what this tells us is something amazing.
And half of it is trust the process, and half of it is we know how often the process lets us down when it comes to any television production, X-Men storytelling,
anything involving Xavier.
Yeah, so trusting the process can be a little bit difficult, and there are times where I sort of want to say to anybody who is making an X-Men related thing, no, I've trusted you too many times and you've let me down. You have to show me immediately. I'm not going to wait for episode 10 to be like, 5 now was really good because I see what they were doing. Because then when it's really bad, I'm like, oh, you guys got me to watch 10 whole episodes and trust you, which is where I am right now with the comics, where I'm just like, every time I get really angry about them, somebody says like, oh, but it's not done yet. You don't know where the story is going. You might love it by the time they wrap up.
Same with humanity and white people, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So it is a tough negotiation. I think my grade still stays pretty high, but I register that, not even complaint, but it's very stuck with me that like not all has been said on this yet. The greater context of where it exists will play a big part in whether or not it really works for me.
I think it's kind of a weird quote, and I'm bringing up something a little ridiculous, but I want to quote Marcus Samuelsson. For those who don't know, he is one of the most important chefs alive right now. I mean, the man literally defines modern cuisine, and he said that for him, sometimes you can eat something that you're not sure how you feel about in the moment, but if you're still thinking about it 4 hours later, that's the dish, man. If you're still thinking about those flavor components, I guess in many ways, I have to give this an A+. I have to say this is the most effective episode of X-Men the Animated Series ever. But I'm thinking about journeys and I'm thinking about destinations. And I think Brian K. Vaughan is breakfast served every hour and he could save the world. But I also think he's never stuck a landing for me. And that's why I jumped off of Saga, because like I was like, oh, okay, I love all of the beats of this. I'm going to hate the ending. I'm off now. So I hate the end of Y. I hate the end of X-Mach. And I don't like the end of his time on Runaways. So I'm left with this sense of, when I read a Brian K. Vaughan book, oh God, I love the journey. I love the journey, man. Oh, every issue is so cool until the last arc, and then I'm kind of not happy. And I think this show has the potential to be my favorite animated superhero story of all time. It also has the potential to kind of bum me out a little bit. And I really need to see that map, that destination, and that journey, because otherwise you're killing members of a minority I identify with for money, for value. And I know they're fictional, but
without much consideration, and that is significant to us.
Yeah. And so I really, and also I just want to go on record as TK, what have you rolled your eyes at me saying 15 times in the last year? Rogue is the single most important X-Man. I don't understand. Like, Jean Grey is my favorite. Wolverine is my favorite. But I can't, I'm like Bob Dylan thinking about Alicia Keys. I can't stop crying because, like, Rogue is incredible. And she is perhaps the greatest X-Woman of all time, probably the greatest X-Man of all time as well. And by that, I mean, literally everyone knows X-Women are better than X-Men. And she's absorbed enough X-Men that she gets to count for half a second. And I just want to be clear here. I just thought that Rogue was the most effective part of this episode, because there isn't a moment for me that Rogue is not the heart and soul of the X-Men.
So I agree with everything you say, except most important, only because I feel like that's maybe a moving target. There are times where basically from supernovas until they leave Utopia, I kind of do think Rogue is the most important X-Man. And like, it's really unfortunate because it kind of seems like it's leading somewhere to like maybe her being the next headmaster, or her being like one of the, like, her getting up to Storm and
Phoenix level, but there was no
just like
her to pin it on.
Yeah, it felt like it was, the idea that Xavier had worked on her for so long and that it was such a sticking block that she couldn't access her powers, that Mystique and Destiny are her parents. It just felt like it was going somewhere, and then it doesn't go it doesn't go nowhere, but it just kind of goes to like, and don't forget, Rogue rules, which is true. She is absolutely just a top tier X-Man. When I say she's not important, I more mean, and this is kind of one of the biggest points that this whole thing has drawn up, because it started with Gambit. It's not that Gambit is this irredeemable scoundrel, and it's also not that Gambit is this, like, maybe you thought he was a scoundrel, but he's actually an amazing guy. He's both, because so many people have written him so hard, and you don't get to pick and choose that much. Like, we can pick and choose a little bit when a character is written by some idiot who associates them with Nazis and nobody ever does it again. We can get rid of that and just ignore the Nazi thing. But like, Gambit has been written amazingly and poorly so often that you can't have one or the other. And in a similar way, Rogue has been written really well, and as people have clearly had designs for her, but nobody has actually written her to be the cornerstone of the X universe the way that Jean Grey obviously hugely has been. Storm has been regularly as just being seen as a leader and being seen as a goddess, but then Storm's biggest thing has been lately as the regent of Soul, and just unquestionably this person that could technically be the highest authority in our galaxy to other people. Magneto, Charles, all of these people, I just think nobody has ever actually written Rogue as being important. This episode, and I think this short order of a series, one of the things that it can do is not dilute some of its big moments. And I do think that it has sort of put a heavy emphasis on Rogue. On Rogue and Magneto, on Rogue, Magneto, and Gambit. Yes, we've absolutely gotten other, we had a whole Madeline Pryor episode. We're getting a whole Storm episode. We've had a Jubilee episode. So it's not as though, they are ignoring other characters. But I guess part of it is also that Lenore Zahn is kind of the flagship voice actor carryover from the previous animated series to this one. So it all just does kind of work out to Rogue being hugely important. And I think the show does it justice.
And I want to just take umbrage with a self burn you gave. You've never said she's unimportant. You've said she's not the most important. And you said, when I say she's unimportant, and I just want to be clear, I don't think you ever have.
Yeah, no, I definitely haven't.
And, the thing that I think is partially why I so think Rogue is a unique entry in the bigger picture of the X-Men multiverse is exemplified here. She has that Jean Grey or Scott Summers stand-in, while clearly Magneto, foppish, faggy Magneto is like, be my queen. And she's not like, okay, sure, no problem. Basically, you're Janice and I'm Damien, and it's fine. And no one has to worry for the rest of our lives. The big thing here was I could see that being Jean under kind of duress from Scott being like, but Jean, we have to do this for mutant kind. And her being like, Scott. But I could also see Xavier being like, Scott, we have to do this for mutant kind. And Scott being like, no, Professor, no more dates. So, there's a balance here. This weird line that Rogue walks isn't genderless, which I always think is a term that people try to use to avoid acknowledging that they have both masculine and feminine parts, but rather gender encompassing. And I think one of the things that makes Rogue special is that she is a female powerhouse who can take on anyone's experience and as such doesn't understand her own. There was something freeing in choosing to center this around her over Logan, over Storm, who, while Storm is also powerhouse, the decided and specific extension of femininity that is granted by Mother Goddess, Storm, is a very different conversation than Rogue's.
I agree with that. And I think it's really important that Storm is also getting such a highlight in this show, and it's just kind of separate. I think, part of putting Rogue in this position does really speak to how important Rogue is to the bedrock of the X-Men. Jean is aspirationally important to the X-Men's dreams of the stars.
I'm sorry, I think you mean expirationally. Jean
yes.
is expirational.
Both in terms of when she will expire, and Storm is really what the best an X-Men leader can be. Like that leadership can become a part of one's soul, and Cyclops is that leadership can be part of one's background and body, and they're all great. But Rogue is really, what does it mean to be an X-Man through and through? Not a leader, not aspirational, but just to be able to walk onto the team even though you were kind of a villain, and to be made part of a family, and to love that family, and to sacrifice for that family, and to have them sacrifice for you. I agree. I mean, she really is a linchpin in that way.
I can't help but agree. And there were a few characters, speaking of Jean, that appeared in this episode in really minor regards. When Jean explained to Wolverine who the Phoenix was, for a minute, I was confused because he was there. And so when she was like, I was possessed by a cosmic entity, and he goes, the Phoenix. And she's like, yes. And I just want to be like, no. That time she was temporarily the Herald of Galactus, or that time she was the host for the Kree Supremor. It was just such a weird exchange. If I have an actual, no, this doesn't work for me about this show in every regard, I find dialogue that isn't Magneto's not great. And oftentimes, I would really love it if Robin Williams said Magneto's dialogue just as much. The dialogue is weirdly timeless when it's Magneto.
Yeah, Matthew Watterson is doing a very good job with it, but it is. He's monologuing very well.
Yes.
I also want to earlier, just a couple hours before we broadcasted, Bo DeMeo posted a long just a manifesto about what this episode was, and it's long. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the last paragraph I feel like kind of sums it all up and is important for a couple of reasons that I sort of want to get into. And he said, like many of us who grew up on the OG cartoon, the X-Men have now been hit hard by the realities of an adult and unsafe world. Life's happened to them, and they, like we did, will have to decide which parts of themselves they will cling to and which parts they'll let go of in order to do what they've been telling humanity to do, face an uncertain future they never saw coming. As Trask told Cyclops in the premiere, you have no idea what it's like to be left behind by the future. Now the X-Men do, and like each of us, they'll have to weigh whether this is a time for social justice, or as Magneto preached at his trial, it is a time for social healing. I think that's a very strong idea to carry into making this. He references both 9/11 and the Pulse nightclub shooting as being inspirations for covering this topic. And, as a Jewish person, you obviously always see Holocaust stuff in genocide. But, as a gay person, I saw Pulse as well, and somebody who lived through 9/11. I see it all. I sort of... Life's happened to them as an idea. Like, that this is the thing for the X-Men that was life happening to them is a little weird to balance out for me.
It's that, yes. Part of where I'm at a loss is if you were alive around that big New York blackout that Canada caused. We're looking at you, Canada. Blame Canada.
Was that the 2004 one?
Yeah.
Oh God.
You know,
I was in a 5th floor walk up.
Yeah, that blackout shut things down in Jersey for 2 days. Like, and the Wikipedia on that is kind of like, oh yeah, this blackout, sometimes it gets referenced. People know what it is. And then there's, as you referenced 9/11, which, my family, multiple members of my family's lives were changed forever. One of my family members was left disabled and then ultimately succumbed to his diseases and illnesses as a result of 9/11. I do not take 9/11 lightly as a person who literally lost family to 9/11. But the 9/11 Wikipedia, let's just call it what it is. It's not a Wikipedia that you tap. It's a Wikipedia you go into. And this episode kind of dressed up what really did feel like maybe a little bit more of a 9/11 moment as kind of a big blackout Wikipedia. And I'm really eager to know where this is going to go when the season finale is called Tolerance is Extinction. And that leads me to a lot of feels, because Bo DeMeo is very publicly kind of like, oh, I don't like it when the X-Men are like, we have to be different and special. And was kind of publicly like, oh, Krakoa doesn't work. They need to go back to lurking in the shadows. And it made me feel very much that he was going to have like the X-Men just be like, oh, we'll go back to the shadows now. Thank you for all of your time on the surface. But it does seem like this puts a little bit more bite back in the conversation. And I'm excited because even through talking about it, the first few episodes, as we talked about them, I maybe liked them a little less, not grade loweringly less, but a little less. There's a lot of times we talk about the current era of X-Men comics where I'm like, flip it to table. I am out. But this is an example of where my B- became a B+, became an A-. If this gives me what I'm looking for as a payoff, I could see this hitting A+ and being, like I said, my favorite episode of this series, and push this to my favorite X-Men animated or Marvel animated project. Yeah, okay. But it really depends on how much they pay off the beauty that they've laid out here, because this is a very dangerous rope to walk. And I would love to think that this tightrope team has it down. But Bo DeMeo was ostensibly fired for being kind of like an internet entity. And by that, I mean all the things that come along with it, positive and negative. That was not a defense. That is an acknowledgement of a very specific personality type in media. And why you don't see a lot of people that behave often the way Bo DeMeo did online, working directly for corporations. And I would really love to know where this is going now for, peace of mind.
Yeah, I mean, that is a big takeaway. Like, for peace of mind, I really would like to know what I mean, the fact that we're going to life death next means that we're taking a really big break. And then we're getting probably another Motendo that I assume is going to have to do with Scott because bright eyes.
Right.
And then
I was hoping for Psylocke. I was hoping for Betsy.
Does somebody call her Bright Eyes?
No, but she gets the robot eyes from Mojo.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, good call. And then we're going into Tolerance is Extinction for 3 episodes. The only thing we know, I don't know if I loved or hated seeing Cable.
Same.
I can understand. I'm saying now, like, if I say I didn't like it, there is an alternate universe where they didn't include this scene, but everything else is the same, and then Cable shows up and fixes everything, and I go, that's bullshit. They didn't say anything about Cable coming back from the future, and then all of a sudden he just shows back up. Fuck these guys. So I'm fully aware that exists, and so I can't sit here in this reality and be like, well, they made it clear that time traveling Cable does not like that this happened and doesn't think it should and is going to body slide his way to fixing it. So on the one hand, at the very least, yes, they have made this clear. I can't call it a Deus Ex Machina when it comes out of the woodwork in 3 episodes. On the other hand, the fact that it's going to happen at all, again, it feels like that thing of my first experience with the Dark Phoenix saga was the X-Men the Animated Series. So then when I read it and Jean actually dies, I was like, oh, that's way better. Like that matters a lot more. That story makes a whole lot more sense. And so doing a Genoshan genocide that we're then going to fix, like, I also know that that's the fantasy of like, would that we could only prevent the horrible things that have happened that we've seen, you know, like 9/11 or like the Pulse shooting. Like, there is something beautiful in living those fantasies through these stories. At the same time, with 10 episodes, I just feel like fixing this one 2 episodes after it happened, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I just want to hop in on what you're saying, because I'm going to tie him right in. You know, I completely agree with you, Allie. I loved this moment in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It was a little bonkers because I think what I've never liked is that Cable isn't the one who's like, give my damn mom a chance. I'm not having this conversation. I begged you to give my brother a chance, and none of you did. And look how strife turns out every time. I begged you to give everyone except Apocalypse and Sinister. That shit's on all of you. I begged you to give everyone else a chance. And look what happened. Can you please just give my fucking mother a chance? Like, that is a moment I have always longed for from Cable with Maddie. I also would like to think that the other earring that Maddie is wearing is actually a right side up exclamation point, and it's sort of saying her name, Maddie. Additionally, Allie, I'm going to say something weird here. I'm often really complimentary of the Disney company, but this is like, I specifically think the Disney company are shit fucks about firing people. They are horrible about how they fire people. They love to rent billboards in Times Square that say, this person violated the morality clause. They can't come back. And like, they're just not saying why they fired Bo DeMeo. And I have to wonder if it had to do with future direction not lining up, and they don't necessarily want to say, well, we're killing this project because we're eventually just going to make it MCU based, and we don't want to have him do it, so we're going to bring in a plant for it. They are the first people to burn everyone that they have fired. They started calling him Jonathan Miners as soon as they fired him. They're just so negative. So I am really eager to have the answer come out, because it is not like Disney to be coy about why they've gotten rid of somebody. It's just not.
I mean, part of the reason I do wonder is also like one of his last Twitter posts before going quiet until today is him in a tank top and a leather jockstrap, which I'd do it too if I looked like that. But I just feel like I really could see them being like, even for being technically safe for work, this is a bit much. And then that also being something very difficult to talk about.
Well, I'll be honest. I'm a teacher, but I would be fired if I looked at that at work. And
right.
so
yeah,
that's not even not safe.
Not even right. Exactly.
That's so beyond not safe for work, because it automatically engages the conversation of fetish gear. Just in the fact that if a woman was wearing a leather bra and panties, it would automatically be engaging the conversation of fetish gear.
We don't often say it, but there's not safe for work and there's outright pornographic. And he's not outright pornographic. And a lot of people are on Twitter, and a lot of celebrities even are on Twitter. So acknowledging all of that.
Exactly. And I can absolutely see somebody just being like, this is tough for the person, like, that we know people are going specifically to your Twitter page to scoop stuff.
Right.
And like I said, if I look like that, I'd do it too, but I also would maybe not be doing this job.
Well, I mean, I've seen your Insta stories, and you do look like that, but neither here nor there.
I'm getting better, but I'm not at this level
Also,
yet.
I'm your guy, so I mean, I see it all the time. But I was just trying to be cute.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Allie, to answer your question, we still don't really know, but there's there are obvious reasons that it could be that I personally would like to get a definitive answer. Did you read any comics today, by the way?
No.
We have a new Nathan Summers in the mix.
Do we know who Trader X is, or X Trader, or Trace?
No, it's a one-off from that Weapon X-Men book.
I don't want to change topics too hard, but just so everybody knows, the creators of Traders have heard you all, and they are moving the more physically challenging challenges to a they have partnered with the creators of American Ninja Warrior, and there is going to be a Traders American Ninja Warrior middle ground hybrid that is going to be
are you fucking with me right now?
No,
he wouldn't.
Yes,
Traders,
he absolutely would, but
I would, but I'm not. I don't joke
okay.
about Traders. I don't. we don't joke about Frasier or Burgerlicious. We don't do that. But
they're doing obstacle courses now.
It's going to be a more physically demanding version of Traders with the same focus as Traders, but not the same show design, which I actually feel is fair to bring up here, because part of what we're talking about is an era of hybridized programming. Part of what I see specifically with X-Men and X-Men 97 in that regard, is that we're looking at shows and we're looking at things that are trying to parse what is popular and what works and what exists. I'm not saying this was the Red Wedding, but I'm saying since the Red Wedding, things have had a whole lot higher body counts to satisfy. And it is a very different experience watching this on D+ than watching Fox on Duh TV in Saturday mornings.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's funny because it's become our Wednesday morning ritual, and it's become a lot of people's. Before they go to work, before they do whatever, they get up.
Wednesday
and they watch
lunch.
this. Yeah, exactly. And you're right. I mean, you have to have a spectacle episode in prestige TV and in streaming TV. You've got to have something that people can talk about, and they did give it to us.
And I am really excited to see the future of this project. We had originally had a very different episode planned for today, but when we watched this morning, it really called for us to think about what made X-Men, what makes X-Men, and what continues to promote the idea of we are a group trying to survive in a complicated world. And I'm hopeful. This episode left me concerned, but this conversation left me hopeful. And I'm just excited to see where it goes. We have a kind of crazy week. So, this is just something that's like on the other side of my worldview right now. But I'm definitely keeping this at the forefront.
I do want to say, while we're still on the image, I love the very not heterosexual way Glob Herman is sitting on that random piece of architecture.
Right. Talk about boned up.
Yep, that's just, a little razzle-dazzle foot there, and it's just all kinds of fun. I do love that. I did love seeing pics. I mean, I loved a lot of the cameos. I agree with what we've said insofar as, like, cameos get a little tough. They get dilutive, because these are all characters that I'd love to just see have their moment. It also means that you can do weird stuff that doesn't feel right for a character, and that's all we get. But You know, it was cool seeing Dazzler. It was cool seeing Pixie. It was cool seeing Exodus, regardless of the fact that like it's a little bit difficult to get a real sense of any of those characters.
Sorry, you lost Nico's attention a little bit because he was sending me the headline about Ninja Warrior and Traders Hybrid, but he missed the red bar at the top of the deadline page that said Melrose Place reboot starring Heather Locklear, Laura Layton, and Daphne Zuniga in the works. So, as we've been circling for ages, we will probably be covering Melrose Place at some point now.
But to jump back to what you were saying, Teak, because oh my god, my whole heart. You know, there was something about the first time I saw Pixie fly across the screen that it even ties into what we were saying earlier about the Rogue era of X-Men. There is a magic, a power, a something to seeing these minor characters that we long for. And I think for so many people, seeing things like Glob Herman and seeing him be so gay sexy, in addition to the sort of big expectation that you are giving us by expanding the focus of the X-Men universe to include so much. But TK, you're the one who brought it up earlier this episode. I worry that a lot of this is going to get undone. What are they going to reset back to then? Is it going to be like the end of whatever that X-Men movie was that did that thing that it reset stuff at the end? Which one was that? The last one?
Future Past.
Oh, it was Days of Future Past, right. So I'm fascinated to see where this is all going to go.
Ali Galactic, thank you for reminding me about this. I do want to actually see if we can cover this on the show. Fallout Season 1, they did just move up the release of it. I'm super excited. I love Fallout a lot, and I'm hoping it is something that we will get to in our coverage because it looks really, really good, and I do love Walton Goggins. So,
you know, I think we talked about this episode. I think we super duper worked it out. We worked it, Doctor, right? Miley Cyrus, 74 on the pop charts after 1 week. Yikes! So, you know, I am really eager to be able to talk about this at the end of the season and see how we feel about all of it said and done in reverse. I'm nervous, but excited, and am
that's
fascinated.
Fun, at least.
Yeah, and I'm fascinated to see how the actual comics are going to continue to respond to the ever-changing nature of the TV shows, because that is the general sentiment that we have used to discuss the movieverse. We've said, oh, well, they changed everything in the comics because of the movies. So maybe they'll change everything in the comics because of D+. We'll have to see. They sure have done it because of D+ shows. So, all right. With that said, I think we're wrapping things up. Our schedule this weekend is a little unusual because this gentleman has a show, a live performance show in Brooklyn. Come on, everybody. You definitely want to check it out. It's put together by Straight to DVD Productions. I stand up in a get up and I wear a guitar and I sing, and I'm a cabaret drag king man, and you definitely want to check it out. It's going to be amazing. The lineup is brilliant. You want to check it out at Come On Everybody Brooklyn. That's Come On Everybody BK on Instagram. You don't want to miss that. Just had to do a little self-plug shamelessness there. But Kevo, what was your favorite part of this episode, and where can everybody find you?
I think my main major reaction to this episode, a lot of watching it, I felt very, this is not for kids, but I'm sure adults felt that way when Elisa Maza got shot on Gargoyles. And I think for as much as we aren't sure how we feel about the overall quality of this show so far, I really appreciate that they are still making sure to push the same boundaries that they pushed when we were kids, and take those sorts of brave chances. And in the meantime, you can find me over on the socials at Kevo Really. That's Kevoreally. Teak, what has been your favorite part of this episode, and where can the folks don't find you?
This was a real privilege to watch with my partner, who had a very emotional reaction to it, and I really understood that. I think I had kind of a delayed emotional reaction to it, but this really addressed a lot of stuff, for good and bad. Like in an entertaining way, it addressed a lot of the stuff that I think both of us love about X-Men and about comics. It was really cool to see Cable again. It was just kind of an interesting crowd pleaser. And it's like that moment at a concert when you see a great crowd pleaser and you're like, that was just a fun moment. Even if later you go back and you're like, oh God, they didn't sound great when they played that. But in the moment, you're really enjoying the fact that they're playing the song that you know and love. And if you want to talk about it anymore, you can find me at TK Elemental. Nico, what was your favorite moment?
I think my favorite moment was getting to see the understanding that there are key players in these stories. Rogue's role in Hellfire Gala 3 in many ways for me kind of complements her role here, and that is part of that connective tissue for me, part of what makes it really stand out, that this is, got elements of so many massacres. But, it was just great getting to see a character I love like Rogue. And one more time, if you guys want to check me out, come on, everybody. Brooklyn, you're going to get to hear me sing, get to hear me tell some jokes, get to be funny, look sexy. I'll probably grab my junk. It'll be really hot. You definitely want to check it out. Oh, I'm like Bo DeMeo. So,
someone will grab it. So.
Right? No, someone's gonna. So it's going to be Nico Action, NICOACTION. And don't forget that's Come On Everybody, Brooklyn, 9 p.m. I can't believe I get to say this. We go on after Lady Bunny. So, but before the underwear party. So come check it out. And until next time, like, comment, subscribe, check out the show. I guess there's an extra one this week. But the other thing we would love it if you guys would do is, number one, spooky, scary world. It's like a werewolf bar mitzvah every day out there, but we need you guys to stay safe. Number two, if you guys can do that one. Number two is going to be, we would love it if you guys would be brave. The world is scary, but you're amazing. And number three, that's going to be to evolve daily. Who you were yesterday, amazing. Who you are today, we love it. But who you are tomorrow, the best version. Being rad. Who you are tomorrow is being rad. So just like Ali said, be rad, bitches. And we can't wait to see you next time.